We are told that to love a child is to wear your heart outside your body forever. It is a state of permanent vulnerability. We worry about the sharp corners of the world, the unkind words in the playground, the sting of a failed exam, the inevitable heartbreak of a first love. Our instinct is to build a wall around them. We want to be the shield that deflects every arrow. But what if the greatest gift you could give them isn't a world without arrows, but a soul that is arrow-proof? Modern parenting has become an exercise in preempting discomfort. We clear the path for the child instead of preparing the child for the path. In doing so, we inadvertently raise porcelain spirits, beautiful to look at, but shattered by the first cold wind of reality. Welcome back to the Stoic Woman. Today we are stepping away from the frantic anxiety of modern motherhood. We are putting down the shield and picking up the architect's pen. We are exploring how the ancient, ironclad virtues of Stoicism can transform you from a worried protector into a grounded guide. This is not about raising a child who doesn't feel. It is about raising a child who cannot be conquered. The weight of the mirror. Before we can teach a child to be a Stoic, we must recognize a terrifying truth. A child is a mirror. They do not hear what we say. They mirror who we are. If you tell your child to be brave while you are visibly trembling at the thought of a social slight, they will learn the tremble, not the word. Stoic parenting begins with the internal revolution of the parent. In the Meditations, Marcus Aurelius didn't write to his children. He wrote to himself, knowing that his leadership of the empire and his family depended entirely on his own hegemonicon, or ruling faculty. As a woman navigating the complexities of the 21st century, your child sees how you handle the broken glass, the rude email, and the delayed flight. Are you the storm, or are you the lighthouse? To raise a resilient child, we must first build our own inner citadel. We must become the person we want them to become. We are not just raising children, we are raising the future's adults. We are tempering the steel of the next generation. This requires a shift in perspective, from fixing our children's problems to witnessing their growth through challenges. The philosophy of the unbowed. Parenting is perhaps the ultimate test of the Stoic dichotomy of control. We can control the environment we provide, the values we model, and the boundaries we set. But we cannot control the child's ultimate character, their choices, or their fate. This realization often brings a sense of grief or panic. We want to ensure they are happy. But the Stoic knows that happiness, in the sense of constant pleasure or the absence of pain, is a preferred indifferent. It is external. What we truly seek for them is eudaimonia, the flourishing that comes from living in accordance with virtue. A resilient child is one who understands that their worth is not tied to their grades, their popularity, or their trophies. Their worth is tied to their prohairesis, their power of choice. If they lose the game, but played with integrity and gave their full effort, they have already won the only prize that matters. The 5 pillars of the Stoic home. In this masterclass, we will move through 5 core lessons that will redefine your role as a parent. We will move beyond the surface-level parenting hacks and dive into the deep psychological plumbing of the Stoic mind. The hand of control. Teaching the child the boundary between the self and the world. The mirror of virtue. How your reaction to the broken glass of life becomes their blueprint for survival. The gift of the hard path. Why we must stop snowplow parenting and start resistance training for the soul. Cognitive reframing for the young mind, turning I can't into I haven't yet, and this is bad into this is a fact. the premeditatio malorum of childhood, preparing the mind for the rainy day so they never feel drowned by the storm. The practical exercise, the evening review for the family. Before we move into Lesson 1, let us begin with a practical ritual you can start tonight. The Stoics were big believers in the evening review. Instead of asking your child, "How was your day?" a question that usually elicits a one-word, superficial answer, ask them 3 Stoic questions at bedtime. This creates a space for reflection rather than just reaction. What did you do today that was kind or brave? This focuses them on their own virtue. What happened today that you couldn't change, and how did you handle it? This reinforces the dichotomy of control. What is one thing you would do differently tomorrow if you had the chance? This teaches progress, not perfection. By asking these, you're not just checking in on their schedule. You are training their brain to filter their experiences through a Stoic lens. You are teaching them that their day isn't defined by what happened to them, but by how they met what happened. Prepare yourself. We are about to strip away the fluff of modern gentle parenting and replace it with something far more powerful, reasoned parenting. Let us begin Chapter 1. The Hand of Control. Chapter 1. The Hand of Control. Defining the internal boundary. The most profound anxiety in parenting stems from a singular tragic misunderstanding, the belief that we can control the outcomes of our children's lives. We act as if, by sheer force of will, we can ensure they are never bullied, never fail, and never feel the sting of rejection. This is the parental illusion. It is a heavy, exhausting burden that leads to burnout for the mother and fragility for the child. In Stoicism, we find the dichotomy of control. Epictetus taught us that some things are up to us and some things are not. To raise a resilient child, we must first teach them where their power ends and where the world begins. This is not a lesson in helplessness. It is a lesson in agency, the sphere of choice. Imagine a circle drawn in the sand. Inside that circle is the child's prohairesis, their faculty of choice. It contains their intentions, their effort, their kindness, and their personal integrity. Outside that circle lies everything else: the weather, the opinions of classmates, the final score of the soccer game, and even the physical health of their body. Most children, and many adults, spend 90% of their emotional energy shouting at things outside the circle. They cry because it is raining on their birthday. They feel worthless because someone didn't sit with them at lunch. As a Stoic guide, your task is to gently pull their focus back inside the circle. When your child comes home distraught because a friend was unkind, the modern response is often to say, "That's not fair, I'll talk to their parents," or "Don't listen to them, you're amazing." While well-intentioned, both responses keep the child's happiness dependent on external validation. The Stoic response is different. It is a dialogue of empowerment. We cannot control your friend's tongue. They are free to be unkind if they choose. But tell me, what is inside your circle right now? Can you control how you respond? Can you control whether you let their words change your opinion of yourself? The practical exercise, the two-hand technique. This is a detailed psychological exercise you can practice with a child as young as 5 or 6. It provides a physical anchor for an abstract philosophical concept. The setup. When a child is facing a challenge, perhaps they are nervous about a piano recital or angry about a lost toy, have them hold out both hands, palms up. The left hand, the world. Ask them to place all the things they cannot change into their left hand. The judge's opinion, the difficulty of the music, The fact that the toy is broken, have them visualize these things as heavy stones. The right hand, the self. Ask them to place the things they can change into their right hand. How many times they practiced their deep breathing before they start, their decision to keep going, even if they make a mistake. The release. Now ask them to literally drop the left hand. Let it fall to their side. Tell them, that hand is full of things that don't belong to you. Let them stay on the floor. Now look at your right hand. That is your treasure. That is the only thing that can actually change your life. By repeating this physical movement, you are hardwiring the brain to categorize stress. You're teaching them that frustration is often just energy being wasted on the left hand. From fragile to firm. When we teach a child the hand of control, we change their relationship with failure. In a typical household, a C on a math test is seen as a bad event. In a Stoic household, the grade is an indifferent. It is a data point from the external world. The real question isn't, why did you get a C? But rather, did you exercise your faculty of choice? Did you study with focus? Did you ask for help when you were confused? If the child worked hard and still got a C, there is no reason for shame. They fulfilled their duty. The result was simply not in their control. If they didn't work hard and got an A, there is no reason for pride. They were lucky, but they were not virtuous. This shift is radical. It removes the performance anxiety that plagues modern youth. It teaches them that their inner citadel is safe regardless of the external weather. They learn that they are not the victims of their circumstances, but the masters of their intentions. Chapter 2. The Mirror of Virtue. The Power of Silent Pedagogy. There is an old Stoic adage, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one. For the Stoic woman, this applies doubly to parenting. You are the primary philosophical text your child will ever read. Every time you lose your temper at a traffic jam, you are teaching them that external events have the power to destroy their peace. Every time you gossip about a neighbor, you are teaching them that the opinions of others are a primary currency. Resilience is caught, not taught. The gap between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl, a modern heir to Stoic thought, noted that between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom. As a parent, your response to your own stress is the most powerful teaching tool in your arsenal. The Stoics called this mimesis, the natural human tendency to imitate those we admire. If you want a child who is unshakable, they must see what unshakable looks like when the dinner is burnt, the bills are high, and the world is chaotic. Practical exercise. The spoken reflection. Normally, our Stoic processing happens internally. But to teach a child, we must occasionally make our internal dialogue audible. This is silent pedagogy made vocal. The scenario: you receive news that a planned vacation has been canceled due to a work emergency. The reactive response: this is terrible. Everything is ruined. I can't believe this is happening to us. Teaches the child we are victims. The Stoic response, spoken aloud: I feel a sense of disappointment right now because I was looking forward to our trip. That feeling is natural. However, the travel restriction is a fact I cannot change. It is outside my circle. What I can change is how we spend this week instead. We can be miserable, or we can plan a home adventure. I choose the adventure. By narrating your Stoic process, you are showing the child the gears of a resilient mind. You are demonstrating that feelings, disappointment, are not the same as actions, misery. You are modeling the transition from pathos, passion, suffering, to logos, reason. The virtue of accountability. Part of being the mirror of virtue is admitting when your mirror is cracked. A Stoic parent does not pretend to be perfect. Perfection is for the gods. Procope, progress, is for humans. When you do lose your temper, because you will, don't just move on. Use it as a Stoic lesson. Earlier today, I shouted. I let my anger take the wheel of my mind. That was a failure of my character. I am sorry. Tomorrow, I will work on being more temperate when I feel frustrated. This teaches the child the most important Stoic lesson of all. That character is a work in progress. It teaches them that a mistake is not a death sentence for their virtue, but a lesson for their future. You are showing them that even the teacher is a student of the soul. Chapter 3. The gift of the hard path. The architecture of resistance. In our modern era, we have been conditioned to believe that love is synonymous with comfort. We strive to remove every pebble from our children's path, ensuring they never face cold, hunger, or social friction. But the Stoics, particularly Musonius Rufus, understood a vital biological and psychological truth. Strength is a response to resistance. If you protect a seedling from every gust of wind, its roots will remain shallow. When the first real storm arrives, it will topple. To raise a resilient child, we must stop being snowplow parents and start being soul architects. We must allow and occasionally invite the hard path. The concept of voluntary hardship. Seneca famously advised that we should take days to live on the simplest food and wear the roughest clothes, asking ourselves, is this what I feared? For a child, this doesn't mean asceticism. It means the end of instant gratification. Resilience is a muscle. If a child never experiences the burn of effort, that muscle atrophies. When we step in to solve a difficult puzzle, to fix a grade they didn't earn, or to buy them a toy the moment they crave it, we are stealing their opportunity to grow. We are telling them, you are too weak to handle this discomfort. Practical exercise. The weight and weather protocol. This is a 3-step exercise to build temperance, sophrosyne, in a child's daily life. The 10-minute gap. When a child asks for something non-essential, implement a mandatory 10-minute wait. Do not frame it as a punishment, but as a training session for the mind. Ask them, can your mind be stronger than your want for 10 minutes? 2. The discomfort challenge. Once a week, choose a hard thing together. It could be taking a slightly colder shower, walking a further distance instead of driving, or finishing a chore without complaining. The post-analysis. Afterward, ask the vital Stoic question. You are uncomfortable, but are you still you? Did the cold break your spirit, or did you observe it and move through it? By doing this, you are teaching the child anti-fragility. You are showing them that they are not made of glass, but of steel. They learn that, I don't like this, is not the same as I can't survive this. Chapter 4. Cognitive reframing. The alchemy of perspective. The Stoics taught that it is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. A child's world is often a storm of judgments. She didn't talk to me, so she hates me. I failed the test, so I am a failure. These are not facts. They are impressions, fantasiae. As a Stoic woman, your role is to help your child become a gatekeeper of the mind. You are teaching them cognitive reframing, the ability to look at a dark event and find the light of reason within it. Deconstructing the catastrophe. Children are natural catastrophizers. To them, a lost sweater is the end of the world. The Stoic technique of objective representation involves stripping away the emotional labels we attach to events. Marcus Aurelius would describe expensive wine as fermented grape juice and purple robes as sheep's hair stained with shellfish blood. He did this to see the world as it truly was, without the glamour or the terror. The practical dialogue, the fact versus feeling game. When a child is overwhelmed by a negative event, sit with them and draw a line down the middle of a page. Column A, the fact. I was not invited to the birthday party. This is objective. It is outside the circle of control. Column B, the impression. Nobody likes me, and I will be alone forever. This is a judgment. It is a choice. Ask the child, which of these can we prove in a court of law? We can prove the fact. We cannot prove the impression. If the impression makes you miserable, why are you choosing to keep it? What is a more truthful impression? The reframed impression. I was not invited to the party. This gives me a free Saturday to work on my painting, which I love. The good flip. Amor fati. Teach your child the power of the word good. This is based on the Stoic concept of amor fati, loving one's fate. When something bad happens, find the hidden virtue within it. Rainy day? Good. A chance to practice patience and find indoor joy. Lost a game? Good. A chance to practice justice by congratulating the winner and fortitude by learning from my mistakes. A mean comment? Good. A chance to practice indifference to the opinions of the unwise. This is not toxic positivity. You are not lying to the child. You are teaching them that every obstacle contains the fuel for a specific virtue. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. When you teach a child to reframe their world, you give them the philosopher's stone. You give them the ability to turn the lead of misfortune into the gold of character. They no longer fear the world because they know they have the tools to interpret it. Chapter 5, Premeditatio Malorum, Shielding the Young Mind. The final and perhaps most misunderstood tool in the Stoic arsenal is premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. In modern parenting, we are told to only think positive thoughts and to shield children from the very idea of failure or loss. But the Stoic mother knows that the sting of misfortune is greatest when it is unexpected. To be surprised by a storm is to be defeated by it. By teaching a child to visualize challenges before they happen, you're not raising a pessimist. You're raising a strategist. You're removing the element of surprise from the world's difficulties, ensuring that when the bad thing happens, the child's first thought isn't why me, but rather, I have been here before in my mind. I know what to do. The rainy day rehearsal. Anxiety is often just a fear of the unknown. Premeditatio malorum turns the unknown into a series of manageable what-ifs. The practical exercise. The worst case, best response game. Before a significant event, a first day at a new school, a sports competition, or a difficult doctor's appointment, sit with your child in a quiet space. The shadow. Ask them, what is the thing you are most worried might happen? Let them speak it fully. Do not dismiss it. For example, I might have no one to play with at recess. The armor. Ask, if that happens, what will your inner citadel do? What is your plan? For example, I will find a bench and read my favorite book, or I will look for someone else who looks lonely and say hello. The realization: ask, would you still be okay? Would you still be a kind and brave person even if you spent recess alone? By rehearsing the difficulty, the child realizes that even the worst case cannot touch their character. They go into the world not hoping for a perfect day, but prepared for an imperfect one. They become unshakable. The final synthesis, the legacy of the Stoic mother. We have traveled through the 5 pillars of Stoic parenting. We have moved from the hand of control to the mirror of virtue, through the hard path and the alchemy of perspective, and finally into the shield of preparation. But there is one final truth every Stoic woman must carry. Your child is not your possession. The Stoics use the term ta'is hyoton, the things pertaining to oneself. Your child, as much as you love them, is ultimately an external. They are a loan from the universe. Your duty is not to keep them forever, nor to mold them into a version of yourself. Your duty is to return them to the world as a self-governing, virtuous, and resilient human being. The masterclass conclusion: resilient parenting is an act of profound, selfless love. It is the love that is willing to let a child struggle so they can find their strength. It is the love that is willing to be the uncool parent who says no to instant gratification. It is the love that stays calm when the world is screaming. When you raise a child with these principles, you are doing more than just parenting. You're engaging in an ancient tradition of soulcraft. You're ensuring that when you are no longer there to be their shield, they will have a shield of their own, forged in the fires of reason and tempered by the virtues of the Stoic mind. You are not just raising a survivor, you are raising a Stoic.
I hope you enjoyed the video. Watch the next one here.